All right, so I've gone through the process of kind of setting up my little stair steps here and kind of just imagining how long each of these little steps will take. But it's hard to know, right? This is the reason why building this animatic is helpful at this stage in the game, because it'll let um, you know what needs to be done. The whole point of the animatic is to make the animation process a little more predictable. By the way, there's just a couple of things that you'll see here. So there's a scrubber. If you hold down shift, the scrubber will snap to the ends of the edits, and this can be handy too if you need to pop the next item over. So if I have this item and I need it to land right on that spot, just hold down shift and it snaps right to it. You can also, with that item selected, let's see if I can remember this correctly, if I press left bracket, it'll just shift it over to that spot. And then if I come over to the other side, I can choose right bracket too, but let's just see if there's anything. Yeah, there's a little gap here. You can see that there's a little gap, so that means that there's one frame of white space there. So I'm gonna just adjust for this and bring this guy over, just drag it over. If you need to zoom in, check that stuff out, you can use the little zoom tool here. Sometimes it's more handy just to drag in like this. So I'm just grabbing this little view, and this lets you kind of see how things are working. So that can work well too. So if anybody, here's my question for extra credit. One thing I'd love to know, and if somebody can come up with this, just email it to me. I'd love to know this. If I were to want to shrink this, so make it a little smaller, if it would automatically pull the frames below it over along with it. That would be really cool. I searched all over for keyboard shortcuts, couldn't find that. So if somebody knows how to do that, let me know. That's something worth knowing. All right, so anyway, I've done this composition. I'm guesstimating what's going on for all of this. But now what I really need to do is add some audio. So first of all, I'm going to clean up my bin because this is getting kind of messy. So I'm going to just make a folder here, and I'm going to call this first one animatic frames, and just dump all of these graphics into here, because as you build, you're going to have lots and lots of stuff in here, right? Next thing I'm going to have audio, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in my pre-recorded audio. And again, if you want to use your own audio, you can go to SoundForge. That's a site that's pretty worthy, or just record your own audio. It's totally fine to do that. I'm not going to grade based on the quality of the audio. You could use Adobe Audition for that. It's pretty straightforward. So anyway, I'm going to just double click in the bin here, go back out. I just need to back up one to the audio file, open that up, and just select everything. So I'm just shift selecting. I'm going to import that in. It's all selected, so I'm just going to drag it to the audio folder. Okay, and here's my audio. So how to start this? I've kind of debated about this. I think one thing that you could do is you could just build all your audio in more layers, right? You could add them to different layers. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this thing called pre-composition. And kind of break this out into a couple of different areas. Okay, so if we watch this first part, it's kind of him talking, and then seeing the car and the thud, right? All of that is kind of one scene. So if we look here, it's pretty much the first 5 little layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on those 5 selected layers, and I'm going to just choose pre-compose. And when I do that, it asks for what's the name of the comp, and pre-comp 1 is fine. And I'm going to just check open new composition. When it does that, notice that it opens up into just kind of a small subsection. This is almost kind of a symbol. And in fact, I think it's interesting that After Effects uses a little graphic that looks like the graphic symbol from Animate. But anyway, now I have this in here and I can start adding some sound. So first of all, I have him talking, right? So he's talking here. I'm going to just drag that in and drop it above so we can see that. And if I play this now,
blah 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 blah.
Right, we can kind of see how that's happening. So he's talking away. 6 seconds is quite a long time, but remember you have an establishing shot. So this first shot's important because you have to kind of get people oriented. We need to be able to see him. We need to be able to see the cars zipping by. By the way, let's add some car noises, right? So I'm going to just come in and right above the blah, blah, blah layer, I'll just add that. And again, I can hold down Shift if I want. If we play this now,
blah 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 blah.
You can kind of hear the car sounds. One thing that's interesting about that is that the car sounds don't really start until about here. Let's play it one more time.
Blah 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 blah.
Okay, so the beep beep stuff starts right about here. One thing, notice that the car layer is selected. I can make an endpoint for this, and I'm going to try to remember it. I think it's Alt left bracket for an endpoint, and this would be Option left bracket. So the bracket keys are the ones right next to the P key. So now,
beep, beep, blah 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 blah.
You can hear that the beep beep sound starts right away. Now I can take this and I can slide it over. And I've got my beep beep starting right away with him talking.
Beep beep blah 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 blah.
Okay, so we've got kind of this initial stuff. By the way, if you want to scrub and hear the sound while you scrub on the timeline, if you hold down Control if you're on the PC or Command on the Mac, you'll hear the scrubbing. Right? If you want to look at the waveform of a layer, if you press L twice, it'll show you the waveform. If you press L once, it'll show you audio levels, and notice that you can adjust these audio levels. So maybe I like the beeping of the cars, but it's kind of distracting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and I'm going to just turn on audio levels, and I'm going to just go ahead and make this quieter. So just have it be a lot quieter. Let's try it out now.
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, so you can hear that the audio's gone down. That's quite a bit. So let's maybe 10 or 11 instead. So anyway, you can do that and you can make these adjustments, right? So I've got these in here. He's talking away, and then he's going to step out. Now, the thing about this is he steps out, and I've given it 2 seconds for the step out, which I think is going to be a little long, but I want to have all of this repeat, right? I want to have his talking and babbling and all that stuff kind of go again. So if I extend this out, notice I can't really extend it. So what I want to do instead is I'm going to copy this cars layer. So I'm going to just go under Edit, copy, and then Edit, paste. There's that cars layer again. And this time I can just take this layer, either one, it doesn't really matter, and extend it so that it starts up where it last finished off. Let's go ahead and get over here. And you can see it's going for ways. I don't need it to go the whole thing, right? I just need it to do the cars layer until that honking starts. So right around here. So I've got a problem, right? I can't go over and grab the end of it, but again, just set your little scrubber where you want it. And I'm going to hold down Alt and press right bracket and that sets the out point for that. So now if I scrub this, I should hear that kind of beep beep sound all through here. So I'm going to just hold down Control, and if you're on a Mac, it'd be Command. Notice that it keeps the volume control. There we go. And I kind of want the blah 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 thing too, right? So select this guy, and I'm just going to have that repeat as well. Now, of course, if we had more, specific dialogue, you'd put that in for the length of it. But right now, this is good. So copy, paste, and let's just have him talking. And I'll just hold down Shift, and let's just crop this in a little bit. And he's obviously not going to be talking while he gets run over. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this back. Notice that what it's doing is it's trimming the audio. This would be the same as kind of just starting to have the audio. If I set the marker here and pressed Alt right bracket, it would trim the audio back to that point, right? So either one of those is acceptable. And in fact, let's go ahead and do that for both. So Alt right bracket, because this is just all that sound. Let me scrub through it again. Oh, I'm not holding
blah 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 blah. So we've
got all this babbling. He steps out. So right here, let's go ahead and have him step out. So I'm going to pull this in. So I'm holding down Shift so it snaps to that point. And then let's get these other guys here and drag these over. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of an overlap. We're just trying to set up the animatic anyway. It's going to just have whatever the top layer is. But now I've got the honking, right? I might even put in the honking noise a little early, right? Maybe he steps out, and as he steps out, we have the honk start. So I've gone through and named all of these sounds so that I can work with them, right? So here's my honk. Maybe the honk will start, like I said, right as he's stepping in. There we go. Let's see what this sounds like if I...
blah blah.
So it doesn't really start. The sound effect doesn't really start until about right there. So let's go ahead and set the in point. So an in point like IN for this. So it's selected, Alt left bracket. That sets the in point. And then I'm going to slide this over a little bit because I want it to kind of preview it. So let's go through. Right, so we have that happen. And he's not going to we don't want the honk for the whole thing, right? He's probably going to start, we're going to start hearing the screech here in a minute too. So we could bring this in, so I could set an end point or out point for this. So it honks, and I want him to see based off of that honk. So maybe around here somewhere, setting the out point. So again, Alt right bracket. And if I scrub it, we can kind of see. Right? So and now what I want to do is I want to put in the screeching tires, right? So I would imagine that you'd start to honk, and then probably you'd start to set in the brake here a minute later, right? The screeching, we first respond that, oh, this is terrible, and then we're going to screech the tires too. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in. I don't know. Depending on different drivers, hopefully somebody would brake before they would honk, but you never know. All right, so let's scrub through this. And you can see that screech doesn't really start. And if I want to look at this again L twice. Right, so looks like there's a waveform there, but you don't, right? The scree is right about there. Right, so if I want to set the endpoint to this spot, right, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option again on the Mac and press left bracket. And that starts it immediately. So let's see.
Blah, blah.
And I think I want to have that screech sound start a little earlier. And I can go ahead and close this up again. And I think the screech, I want it to stop right when we get to the thud, right? Screech, and then boom, he's going to get whacked. So at this point, I'm just going to, with it still selected, Alt right bracket. And then I want that thud sound. So I'm going to just kind of set this up where the next sound is. Look in here, come over to thud, and drop it in. Just kind of line it up. There's thud, and it's pretty fast. If I scrub it, it sounds like there's just one little extra bit, so I'm going to just hold down Shift and drag it over. Okay, so it ends right here, and sure, maybe we just have a little bit of quiet. I'm going to leave just a little bit of quiet here, and on this last one, I'm going to move in this work area end. So notice that there's this little blue bar. It's not the top blue bar, it's the one that's in the work area. I'm going to slide that over to the end of this. So notice it's no longer 12 seconds. And once I'm cool with this, and again, we could play it just to, let's just play this whole thing. So I'm going to come up in preview. If you look over here up in the upper right, there's this preview button. I'm going to play it.
Blah 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 blah.
So it works pretty well. And by the way, you can do some basic animation if you want the animatic to do some things. So like if we want his leg to swing out, for instance, you could do that, right? So if I come down here and I open up some of the items, I can pop it open like this and go to transform. I could transform a little of this. So if I wanted to have, let's just fiddle around with this for a second. If I wanted to just show that his foot was stepping out, right? Maybe set a position, maybe set rotation. So to have this begin, maybe it's rotated back a little bit. So I'm going to just come back. All right, set that up. And then he steps out. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and you can see I went just a little far. There we go. Go ahead and have the rotation swing out, and maybe have the position move over, right? Just to indicate that there's going to be stepping out, right? We don't need to do much here. And in fact, you don't need to worry about doing this at all unless it helps you kind of understand what's happening. Once we've got that, close that up. The honking part, this is kind of fun. If we want this guy to have some activity, why don't we start with it a little smaller? So I'm going to just come up and scale this down. If you hold Shift, it keeps it nice and constrained. So I'm going to just have it scaled down a little bit, pop it open, do a transform, and let's just do scale and position. So it starts there, and by the end, let's get that grill right in our face, right? So get this nice and big. There we go. So we get the, now we get that big sense of danger, right? So, doing just a little bit of animation here can be helpful. If you want the little car to have a little bit of angle to it too, you could always put in a little rotation, start with it doing that, fiddle around just so that you can see I'm just making these adjustments, right? So maybe just rotate it a little bit. That way we're going to make it kind of cartoony. And then rotate it back the other way. And finish it off kind of level. There we go. So we've got kind of just a little bit of animation, and we've got it all synced up to sound. So that's a pre-composition, gives you this kind of nice little small space to work in. So I'm going to save my work, Control S, and let's go back to the main animatic and just see what's left here. So if we look up along here, here's our composition pre-comp. Down here along the side, here's our list of windows. So I'm going to just click on animatic instead. And here's our little pre-comp. It's got all this stuff, and again, if I press play,
blah 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 blah. Screech.
Right, but you'll notice that there's some blank space here, right? So that blank space is occurring because we brought it in a little bit. So I'm just going to set the out point on this, just kind of like what we saw before. So maybe this is the last one. By the way, if you do page up, page down, you can move just a frame at a time. So if you need to dial that in, so page up, page down is good for that. Once I get to my last frame here, I'm going to press Alt, right? And I'm setting the out point for this selected layer. So Alt right bracket. The rest of these, just select them all and hold down Shift, slide them over. And I would just go through this process of adjusting each of these. Now, I would only do the pre-comp. Well, if you need to edit it, you can still go back, but notice that you're going to still have to make some adjustments. Again, if somebody finds out a fast way to get this just to snap, if I set the in point or the out point here, it'd be great if the other layers just immediately snap to that new position. So if somebody knows how to do that, let me know. Okay, so I think I've shown you how to set this up. The next video I'm going to just show how to export.